Today on the Best of Oklahoma Gardening, we're traveling around to see all the color of summer. First, we visit our patio garden as it shows off beautiful blossoms. We head to OSU's campus to look at the annual color in the Formal Gardens. Then we head north to the Monet Garden at Overland Park Arboretum. And finally, we look at the fragrant Plumeria at Philbrook Museum of Art in Tulsa. Underwriting assistance for our program is provided by the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing. So if you're looking for an easy, low-maintenance perennial, have two different types of flowers on one plant. Capsaicinoids that gives the pepper its heat. Our patio garden has been blooming here over the last week, and I feel like finding cacti in bloom is sort of like seeing a shooting star. You know it happens, but timing is so important to actually experience it and see it yourself. So today I wanted to bring and share with you our cacti that we have here in our patio garden as they are in bloom. So here we have our hedgehog cactus that is native to northeastern Mexico and southwest US and hardy to zones 5. Now it's a bit shorter and more compact, and it is covered in white spines. But this time of year in late May, you get a nice display of vibrant pink flowers. So just next to it, we have the Texas rainbow cactus, which is just native to mainly the Big Bend area of West Texas. You can see that it is more of a sturdy, singular stem that it creates here, and it'll be about 4 to 6 inches wide and only capping out at about 8 inches in height. Of course, it's covered in spines, and it actually gets that name rainbow because of the banding that will create on the base of those spines, kind of creating a rainbow effect on the stem there. It also, when it blooms later in the season, later in the spring, I should say, you can see that it's just now coming on while some of the others are done blooming. It actually has more of a yellow flower, but as that flower matures, it sort of turns this pink color. It is hardy from zone 6 to 10, and so it's overwintered just fine for us here in Stillwater. Now switching a little bit, we have almost a shrubby or tree-like cactus that's known as the tree cholla. It is also native across the southwest US, and you can see it's very different than the others that we featured so far, as it has more of a rope-like gray-green stem that are again covered with spines, so you want to be careful when you're handling it. It does bloom, as it's one of the later ones to bloom here at the Botanic Gardens in late spring, with a pink flower that's followed by a yellow fruit that will persist for several months, and it's actually, that fruit is an attractive quality for wildlife. The nice thing about this tree cholla, however, is that it's very sculptural throughout the year, even into the winter months, as it can remain hardy to below 0 temperatures. Now switching to a different genus, we have several different opuntias here that I want to kind of go through with you. And opuntias are actually some of the most cold tolerant of the lowland cacti. In fact, they can spread all the way up into Canada. Now the first one that we have to look at is Opuntia polyacantha. One of the single most widely distributed opuntias is polycantha that grows from the southern US border all the way to Canada. It has a little less tidy appearance, as it can remain relatively compact and grows low to the ground. So often in the wild, you'll see it kind of have a lot of grass growing over it, or a lot of other plant debris that kind of intertwines with it and covers it up. However, it is pretty fierce with both short and long spines. The short spines tend to be darker in color, and the long spines are thinner and lighter in color. The flower can range from yellow to pink. Now the next one we have is another Opuntia polycantha, or Great Plains prickly pear. Although this particular cultivar is known as Peter Pan, and you can see it has a much different look. It actually has more of a miniature condensed look. And the reason why it's called Peter Pan is because it continues, it's perpetually growing in a juvenile state, which means it's never going to flower for us. However, it creates these smaller pads that are covered with spines on them. So again, you want to be careful, but it creates a dense mat that has kind of more of a grayish color to it because of all those spines as it spreads out across your garden. So here we have the marble fruited prickly pear, which is another species of Opuntia. And it's most distinguishable because it has circular pads, and the spines that are in clusters of 5 to 8 are kind of a reddish yellow color, and they actually kind of sort of point down more than some of the other prickly pears. Now you can see it has beautiful yellow flowers that come on in late spring, and this particular one is more native to Southwest Texas in the Chihuahuan Desert. Next we have the golden prickly pear, and it's known for having its yellow flowers, which is how it has its name, although you can see ours has a pink flower, and in fact this particular species of Opuntia can hybridize really well with other prickly pears. Therefore you often get offsprings that have more spines or pink flowers, such as the one we have. Also, there is a popular cultivar, Coombs Winter Glow, that has more of a magenta flower. Now, traditionally, the golden prickly pear is a low-growing cactus with oval-shaped bluish-green pads that are mostly spineless. As you can see here, they do, however, have a few spines that tend to be up around the top of each of those pads. Golden prickly pear is hardy from zones 5 to 9, but in the winter, the pads will turn a darker purplish gray color, but will soon green up in the spring. The next one we have here is called Beaver's Tail cactus, which is native to northwestern Mexico and southwestern U.S. It is a sprawling cactus that has flattened pads and is relatively spineless when you first look at it. However, you still want to be careful because it does have those fine hairs that are like spines that will get into your skin and are often more difficult to remove. And last we have the cow tongue prickly pear, and you can see, like other prickly pears, it's going to again have some of those spines on there that you want to be cautious of. It tends to kind of lay down, but then will produce what it's really known for, which are these kind of elongated, more of a spade shape pad versus some of the others that have been more round or oval shape. It tends to be a little bit longer and wider at the base of it. You can see we've got a new flush of pads that are coming on. Unfortunately, this is one of the few that didn't bloom this year, but traditionally does have yellow flowers on it. So while cacti can seem a little different than our traditional ornamental plants, they definitely can add a beautiful aesthetic appeal to your garden. We're here at the Formal Gardens on OSU's campus, and joining me is John Stevens with Landscape Services. And John is one of many that help contribute to making this Formal Garden such a beautiful place to visit. John, can you tell us a little bit about your secrets? I mean, it's just phenomenal. I know a lot of times you focus on orange colors, but this year it's an explosion. It's like a rainbow here in the garden.
Yes, Casey. Well, this year we wanted to really highlight a lot of different plants, annuals that you can put in a garden, just different colors, all the potential that it could be, plants that would attract insects, and just really have a season-long interest.
And definitely a lot of insects. We've got hummingbirds and different pollinators flying around us out here.
And even a rabbit.
And even a rabbit, yeah. So rabbits kind of help prune a little bit, right? So tell us a little bit about some of the ones that have just been phenomenal for you this year.
Well, my personal favorite has been the firebush. It's called Lime Sizzler. It's this really vibrant color, has some orange in it, some yellow. It's just really striking, and we have it lining the center long beds. It really just draws your interest when you eyesight when you walk into the gardens.
And it's got the orange tubular flowers, so definitely great for hummingbirds as well.
Yes, hummingbirds love it. Another favorite of mine is the salvia. The Rockin' the Blues is the cultivar. If you want to attract bees in your garden, that's definitely the plant I recommend. The bees just swarm over and just love it. Really inviting for that insect to come to your garden.
And it's overflowing with long flowers on it, about 2 to 3 feet tall it looks like. So doing quite well for you. And we can't help but notice these periwinkles or vincas right here in front of us. I know you've got a couple of different kinds. Tell us about this one first of all.
Well, this one here is one of my favorites that we planted. It is from the Kauai series. There's several different colors in there. There's blueberry and pink, red. I think we captured all the colors in the series. For vinca, it seems to be one of the more hardier vincas, can handle the Oklahoma weather. We had a lot of rain during the June and July months this year. As you know, vinca don't like sitting in wet feet or getting very much overhead watering. So that was a challenge, but even though they went through all of that in the early summer months, they really bounced back, as you can tell. They're just really tough plant. They're
looking phenomenal, and what I really love about this series is they have a much smaller flower, but so many flowers that still get all that color impact, but adds a unique texture compared to some of your traditional vincas.
Yeah, behind me is the Tattoo series vinca, but this still has the same challenges as the smaller flower. They don't like the setting in wet feet and the overhead watering.
And the Tattoo has that kind of a darker eye to it, right? So obviously we've got some celosia. You mentioned some salvias. We can't help but notice there's also gomphrena behind us, and the cannas. Talk a little bit about those as well.
Well, the cannas we grew from seed. Anyone that has ever had any experience with cannas, it's very difficult to grow from seed. They usually come in like a tuber, or you just buy it as a plant. So we took a lot of pride in our cannas in the garden because we have a lot more vested interest in it from start to finish.
And they're doing phenomenal. They really are.
Thank you. And we also have the lantana. It's the Lucky series, and this is Flame. It's really vibrant. Another plant that catches your eye when you walk into the garden.
So I know one thing about lantana is it comes in a range of sizes. Have you guys had to prune this lantana at all?
No, this one has been really self-sufficient. We haven't had to do very little trimming on it. Maybe there's a wild one that comes over the edge and we want to keep it out of the pathway, but it's been very low maintenance.
Okay, that's nice. Getting the right plant for the right place definitely helps. Also, you've just got the whole garden punctuated with some ornamental grasses. Looks like purple fountain grass. Adds a lot of texture and movement into the garden, right?
It does. Right today it's a windy day, and you can hear the wind just cutting through the seed heads. It's real wispy sounding, very, very nice.
Unfortunately, is an annual.
It is an annual.
I have to remind people that it's not going to survive our winters here.
Definitely won't like the Oklahoma winter, so it's just a summertime plant, but really loves Oklahoma. Does well in our summers, handles the heat.
So I know this doesn't just happen by accident. This isn't just we went through the catalog, pulled some plants, and it worked out for us this way here. Tell me a little bit about kind of the planning that might happen, or how you guys go about that.
Well, I think many of your viewers will relate. You visit nurseries throughout the year, or maybe the catalog shows up in the mail and you start going through it and you just make lists. And that's kind of the same process with us, but we may take it a step further. We'll put it on spreadsheets and divide it up into color. And if you want to come with me to the garden, a greenhouse garden, I can show you more of that.
Okay, let's go check it out.
Okay, Casey, welcome to Landscape Services Trial Garden, and it's here where we decide what we are going to plant on campus.
This is kind of behind the scenes. This is where y'all grow all of your stuff at your facility greenhouses, right? So,
when we try to decide on what we're going to plant, I think that your viewers will relate to this process. It kind of starts out where we just go around town and we see, maybe go to a nursery, or we get a catalog in the mail and we see a plant that we like, or maybe a color that we like, and we write it down and maybe hope to try it in the garden later. But I think we take it a step further. We'll produce spreadsheets and keep track of those plants throughout the year.
And so you grow them here first, any ones that you're new with or unfamiliar with, you kind of trial them here a little bit first?
Yes, we try that. Sometimes in the industry we get sent plants by growers that they want us to try, and we like them and want to see how they would do. Usually we have like a wish list and maybe a color scheme we want to do, and from our lists that we have saved, we'll produce little pictures on the screen and on the computer screen and see if we like those color combinations, and maybe we'll go out and then find these plants, and then that's how they wind up in our trial garden.
Okay, so it's literally kind of like an interior design. You put a montage of photos together and see if it works.
Exactly, but we have to plan it out years in advance, so we're already thinking 2025, and so it's a year-long process. When we have the trial garden, then we get a specimen that we want to try. We always plant a plant in a pot, and then we also will plant it in the ground, because we want to see how it does in Oklahoma's climate, which can be brutal with the heat, drought, and wind. We want to see how each plant will respond to what we are going to throw at it. Because if it fails, we want it to fail in our garden, not out on campus where all the students and everyone can see.
Absolutely. And I noticed you've got a fair amount of like drought tolerant native stuff, which is also predominant on campus as well.
It is. We're really trending toward, especially in our native plant corridor, a lot of hardy plants, natives, things that can handle the drought. Up here in my garden right now, we have Gara growing, does really well in Oklahoma. It's drought tolerant, handles the sun.
Yeah, it's kind of past its prime right now, but normally it would be covered with white flowers or pink flowers, and in
our trial garden, we tend to just let things go. We want to see what would happen if it's just, I wouldn't say neglect, but we just let it be free and grow how it wants to. Very, very minimal interference from us. So we just want to see how it will respond.
All right, so some of the stuff we're seeing out here might actually be on campus in a year or two. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. And if you I could honestly say that if you look in this garden, you'll see future formal gardens in this, but this is not pieced together yet.
All right, so it's like looking at all of the paint before the artist does its work.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us, John.
You're welcome.
Today we are here at the Overland Park Arboretum, which is just south of Kansas City, Kansas. And we are here because they have a beautiful Monet garden. And joining me is Gale McRoberts, who is a master gardener here in Johnson County.
Hi.
Hello, thank you for joining us out here.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is so exciting and so beautiful. I feel like I've just walked into France all of a sudden here at the Monet Garden.
That's exactly the experience we want you to have.
So tell us a little bit about the role master gardeners play here at the Overland Park Arboretum.
So Johnson County has over 500 active master gardeners, and there's about 40 to 60 probably that work in the Monet Garden. We support 9 gardens around the county. They're all spectacular, but this one is unique in that it replicates the actual Monet design elements. And so we have 2 work days a week, and it's a fantastic experience, when a feast for the eyes.
And you guys get to really actually be a part of the design of your annual color that you put in here and stuff?
We do. It is a wonderful partnership with the city, and there's different bed captains for each of the sections of the garden, and they work tirelessly every year to plan on what new plants they want to put in to keep the style and the coloration authentic to how it was designed by Monet. And so it's just a wonderful relationship. There's a little greenhouse here on site that the Arboretum actually grows many of our plants from seed over the winter and has them available for us in the spring. And and then this is what happens.
I mean, I think we hit it at a peak, but it probably looks like this. I know the poppies are just finishing up, so there's beautiful seed heads, and the gladiolus are just coming on. So
it is always a wonderful time to visit Monet, but you're right, this is pretty peak. May, June timeframe is really ideal before those real hot, brutal temperatures start.
So let's talk a little bit about some of those Monet garden design elements that he's so famous for.
Great. There are about 7 or 8 elements that he incorporated into his garden that we tried to replicate here. One, starting with layers. Monet was big on not just planting, obviously, at ground level, but also going up. So he had a lot of structures and arbors in his garden. And so he also wanted to paint the blooms and the flowers with the backdrop of the sky. Right. And so having those arbors and those elements available was important to his design. The other one was purity of color. Obviously, he's thinking like a painter, so all of the gardening he did was with the intention of painting. Right. So he selected plant materials that were real intense in color, not as opposed to the variegated. Right. Similar in lighting and backlighting, he selected color of florals and plants that were like single petal, so that way you'd have the
like the poppies where they sort of glow when the light shines through them. Right, okay.
He incorporated white, so he used a lot of different and contrasting colors that are very appealing to the human eye. And then he used structures into his garden like bridges, boats, and benches. We've replicated the benches and the bridge. We are not able to replicate the boats.
Well, and I know there's a shade garden behind here, and so you really have played up more of the texture aspect there, right?
Absolutely. That is such an important part, too. Richly patterned textures. When he added the lily pond, which really was the last 20 years of his life, gave him inspiration for painting, he used that as his texture garden. He put azaleas in there. He put a lot of the ornamentals, and so that was an important element as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the water lilies and the lotus. Of course, that is Monet, classic Monet, right?
Absolutely, a lot of paintings.
In addition to weeping trees, right? So
yes, and unfortunately we lost our signature weeping willow here a year ago, but we have replanted, and it's going to be a while before it gets back to that Monet style weeping willow. But absolutely,
you still have a weeping Norway spruce back there that looks beautiful.
We do.
So including some of the trellises and things that you have, the hardscape, you have a lovely sculpture of Monet also.
We do. There was a generous gift given in 2013, a Utah artist by the name of, I think John Price is his name. He actually designed this, and what I love about it is the easel that is being used here in this statue is a replication of the view you're going to see here when you visit the garden.
So Monet is literally looking at the garden he's painting here.
He really is. So he's always with us when we're here, watching over us, making sure we are not violating any of his design elements.
Well, Gal, this is just phenomenal, and I know there's even more to the Overland Park Arboretum. If somebody from Oklahoma wants to come up and visit, can you give us a little more information?
Absolutely. The Arboretum is open every day of the year, and there are lots of events going on in all seasons, even in the wintertime when the actual Monet Garden in France is closed. It's only open from April to October. Ours is open year-round, so we have to have a lot of winter interest. And there's luminary walks and wonderful things the Arboretum's putting on all the time.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
It's a joy to be with you.
Thank you. You may have seen this tropical plant in Oklahoma landscapes, but it is a tropical plant. However, it's one that we often see out in Oklahoma landscapes, or especially in containers. And this is the Plumeria plant, or in fact, it can be a tree in some tropical parts. It's originally native to Brazil, up to Mexico and the Caribbeans, and you're probably most familiar with it related to Hawaii, where it was introduced into Hawaii in 1860. And this is the flower that they use for those leis. In fact, you can kind of just pluck those flowers off and they thread them onto string in order to make those Hawaiian leis that they welcome you with. And they have amazing fragrance. It has this very sweet fragrance. Now these flowers come in a range of color from white to cream yellow, all the way to an apricot, and even this pink kind of a rose color as well. You can see the branch structure is kind of unique. So it sort of has this really large branching structure that really splits and opens up. In Hawaii, they can get to be up to about 30 feet tall. Of course, here in Oklahoma, where they're not winter hardy, they're only going to get to be about as big as what you can actually transport them in and out to protect them. So here we do have them planted in the ground, but they will then get dug up. And in fact, they just kind of overwinter them in a kind of a shelter where it does not get below freezing. So you want to make sure that they aren't exposed to freezing temperatures, but they can handle some cooler temperatures. So if you have a garage or a place like that, somewhere where it'll allow them to kind of go dormant, but not freeze, that's a good way to overwinter them and then bring them back out into a container. However, you can see that they do get quite large, and with these large leaves on there, they definitely can catch our Oklahoma wind. So make sure that you put them in a container that's going to kind of counterbalance that upper growth so that they don't blow over also. Other than that, with this foliage, let alone the flowers, it makes a unique attraction to your Oklahoma landscape.
There are a lot of great horticulture activities this time of year. Be sure and consider some of these events in the weeks ahead. Join us next week on the Best of Oklahoma Gardening as we look at garden crafts that can be prepped this winter. And this has been another episode of Oklahoma Gardening. We're out. To find out more information about show topics as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure to visit our website at oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. Join in on Facebook and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. Tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater gem. We would like to thank our generous underwriter, the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is also provided by Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, the Oklahoma Horticulture Society, the Tulsa Garden Club, and the Tulsa Garden Center.